Hey everyone, welcome to Cinema Trip Reviews. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about Men. Wait a minute. Welcome back to Cinema Trip Reviews, everyone. I am Wyatt, of course. Before we get into the show, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Make sure to go check us out on Twitter at Cinema Trip Reviews, and also go check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Pretty much available everywhere you can find them. Make sure to go stop in and leave us a good review there as well. Also, if you're a fan of Fangoria like I am, make sure to go to shop.fangoria.com/cinematripreviews and use code cinematripreviews at checkout for 20% off your whole order. Lots of Fangoria goodies there, from the old issues to new issues to also new merchandise they've been releasing as well. So definitely go to shop.fangoria.com/cinematripreviews and use code cinematripreviews at checkout for that 20% off. You're not going to find that deal anywhere else, so use our code. It's reaching that time of the year where I'm slowly kind of going back and watching some of the movies I have missed going throughout the year. Coming out of October, I had the huge horror month. November is like the perfect month to catch up on all the movies you may have missed throughout the whole year before you go into December and start watching all the Christmas movies. So that's normally what I do around November. Now, this movie has been on my radar for a while, A24 MEN. This one is directed by Alex Garland. He went and directed Ex Machina and Annihilation a couple years ago. I recently just watched Ex Machina about a month or two ago for the first time. I actually really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed Annihilation too whenever it first came out. But I'm also a pretty big fan of A24. A lot of people kind of give them shit for, just the term elevated horror and some of the tendencies to have very slow burn type movies that have a lot of tension and atmosphere to them. It's for some people it's not for. It's at A24. I love them because not only do they just make horror movies, but they have other movies in their wheelhouse as well. Normally, I stick to more of their horror side of stuff there. I'm not really bothered by the term elevated horror at all. It doesn't really matter to me much. I just enjoy their movies. A lot of the movies I'm into, Hereditary is one of my favorite horror movies, not just of the last 10 years, but probably ever. I mean, I genuinely love Hereditary. It's one of those movies that is one of the newer movies that actually genuinely creeped me out and somewhat, I wouldn't say scared me, but came very close, and not a lot of movies can do that here nowadays. But of course, I love The Witch, Midsommar, Uncut Gems, Everything Everywhere All at Once that came out this year was fantastic. And I also enjoy like The Lighthouse as well. And there's other stuff. They have a ton of different movies like The Green Knight, which was okay. It Comes at Night, Saint Maud. They have so many movies out there. But I genuinely love how they do them. I just love the atmosphere. I love the sense of dread and eeriness and a lot of their horror stuff. And even their non-horror, you still feel like they do a very good job of putting you in the place of some of these characters and they do a very good job of transporting you to whatever movie that you're in. So those are a couple reasons that I just genuinely love A24. They really just kind of started out as a distributor of movies, just buying up some movies that are already made and distributing them out to the public, putting them out there for people, and that's how they got their start. Now they're producing their own movies and putting them out there, and they really have skyrocketed in popularity here as of late, the past couple years or so. But like I said, I liked Alex Garland's other movies here, so after watching the trailer for this, because I really didn't know too much about this movie other than watching that initial trailer, I kind of stayed away from reviews and from what other people were saying whenever it came out, because I kind of wanted to form my own opinion on this movie itself. This does star Jessie Buckley and Rory Kinnear. As far as the trailer, it looked creepy. I was very in for it. It just looks like a typical A24, very creepy atmospheric type horror movie. There's going to be some wild shit thrown in there where you're like, I have no idea what's going on as well. That happens in a lot of their movies, which I'm a big fan of because, I'm a huge fan of David Lynch. So I like those kind of movies that kind of bend and twist your mind and kind of make you figure it out on your own a little bit. So I was kind of expecting that going into this movie. Now, I genuinely try not to do this on the show because I always try to keep an open mind about movies, and I usually try to look at movies for what they are, face value, and try to go in with an open mind and give you my genuine opinion on them. And I try not to shit on movies at all. I usually try to look at the movies, try to look at the actual good in the movies and see what these directors were trying to do. With that being said, I hated this movie. I did not like this movie really at all. It had me in maybe for the first half or so, but yeah, that back half, especially that third act, the last 30 minutes or so, it did nothing for me. And I was actually looking forward to watching this movie. Me and my girlfriend were looking forward to seeing this, and we were both by the end of the movie just like, we didn't like that at all. We hated this movie. They did a very good job at giving you the basic like A24 horror, eerie, creepy, tension-filled, atmospheric type stuff in the trailer, and that's what made me excited for it. I thought it was going to be just another creepy A24 type movie, and of course it's going to go crazy off the rails at some point, I thought, but man, this movie... This was like and it was only like an hour and 40 minutes, but it felt overly long. It felt bloated. There was just so many different extended scenes of just this, Jessie Buckley, her character, just walking around in the woods, doing nothing. In these scenes, you're really only just sitting there admiring the scenery, like all the, the bright greens of the forest and the grass that she's walking through, and seeing some of like the broken down like houses and sheds in the woods and stuff. But there's so many scenes of her just walking around, not doing anything. And this movie, I feel like it could have done a lot better if they just would have made it like a short film, like maybe an hour or less than an hour. I feel like this movie would have worked way more if it was compact and like a little short film. Because this movie is just so bloated, and it just feels like there's not enough there. And a lot of people say this about A24, and I normally don't say this about their movies, but this movie was pretentious as fuck. It really was. I feel like this movie really thinks it was smarter than it actually was, and it really thought it was going to blow the socks off a lot of people. But this movie just did nothing for me at all. I mean, there was some parts of genuine creepiness and tension in these, and that mostly comes from the scenes where her character is within the house, and there's an intruder trying to get into the house, or maybe there's someone in the house already. But a lot of the tension comes from those scenes, or like I mentioned, towards the end of when she's walking through the woods, she goes to the tunnel, when she's doing like the little echo thing in the tunnel, and you see the person stand up at the end and start running towards her while he's yelling or whatever. And then like you think she's being followed, and then she goes back to her house. There's some points of actual genuine creepiness and tension in this movie, but they really kind of throw it all away. They really do. Now Rory Kinnear, he's okay in the movie. He plays a bunch of different characters in this movie. I know if you saw the trailer, you probably noticed a lot of these characters look like this one guy, and they do that on purpose. I mean, this dude pretty much plays almost every character in this movie. And I would say he does a good job, but I feel like he plays the characters pretty much the same way to me. I feel like there's really, other than the costumes and the different looks, the basis for these different characters are supposed to be, like, I get, from my interpretation of it, was the different characteristics of men, or these different all these different characters. But he really plays them kind of the same. You get the same kind of feeling from a lot of them. So I feel like he doesn't do enough with all these different characters, but I even if he would have, it doesn't save this movie at all to me. The cinematography was great in it. I liked the cinematography. I liked a lot of the shots in there, but just the way that the story unfolded, and especially the ending, man. I'll get to the ending in a minute, but it just felt very lackluster, and it just felt like it was very bloated with not enough substance. There was really not much there behind it. The basic plot is this woman is trying to get a divorce. She has a huge fight with her husband, which you get bits and pieces of this fight and this story throughout the whole movie as she's kind of reflecting. But she's trying to get divorced with her husband. They have a huge fight. He ends up like hitting her. She kicks him out. He even threatens about killing himself if she leaves him, which is such a fucking asshole thing to do. And he even says, like, this is going to be on you. It's going to be on your guilt, like your conscience. You killed me. It's like, dude, you fucking killed yourself. like you soft. You being a soft ass human being, you getting your feelings hurt. You're just gonna kill yourself because some girl doesn't want to be with you because you're an asshole. So I mean, that's on you, brother. That's on you. Don't put this on her. And then of course there's a couple different sides of the story in this as well, because they even said like, oh, he tried to climb up to the roof to go down on their balcony to get in, and then he may have slipped and fell, or he actually killed himself. He jumped off the roof to kill himself. But she's trying to get over the death of her husband, who she was trying to get a divorce from. So she goes on a retreat to get away and try to, free her mind, clear her mind. What I got out of it is she's just trying to get over that. She's trying to get over the guilt and everything of this. And a lot of the different characters that Rory Kinnear plays, the men in the movie, are like the different characteristics of a man, of her husband specifically, I guess. And then at the very end, oh my God, I don't even know where to go with this at this point, because the very end, you have 4 different birth scenes that you get, and it's Rory Kinnear's different characters being birthed out of one after another, and it just goes on for way, way, way too fucking long, and it's just aggravating. And if I wasn't watching it with somebody, I would have turned the movie off, because I was just like, all right, this is too much. I'm over it. This is just not entertaining at this point. It's just fucking pompous, and it's just so pretentious at this point, and it just did nothing for me, because the different men that Rory Kinnear plays is giving birth to the next one through like this weird vaginas, like where they're supposed to be, and then there's a vagina on the back that a dude pops out of, different places. If you haven't seen it, I know it sounds wild right now, but if you have seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But the very last thing that he gives birth to is her ex, her husband that killed himself, which makes you think that's what it gave me the assumption that all the men that Rory plays are characteristics, because they all have a certain thing about them. Like one is very he wants to be kind of the hero. He wants to kind of help her with anything that she needs help with. One is kind of very the one that's like stalking her and is very needy. There's a bunch of different like characteristics to each person, and combined makes her husband. And it's all the things she didn't like about him or something like that. I don't know. It's just so dumb. I feel like if they could have narrowed this down to 40 minutes or a half hour or an hour, whatever, and I feel like even if they would have made it more concise, I think it would have worked better as a short film instead of just a bloated mess that this movie was. Like I mentioned before, it just comes off very pretentious. And what's odd is I didn't get that feeling from any of his other work, really, like through Ex Machina or Annihilation. Those were genuinely really good movies, thought-provoking movies. And this one, I feel like, I don't know what he was trying to do with this movie. I don't know if he was just trying to, if this was his interpretation of an A24 movie, that he just like, oh, I'm going to go make one crazy, weird fucking movie. I feel like this movie falls into a lot of the characteristics that a lot of people think of when it comes to A24 movies. And they're not wrong with this one. This movie is way too slow. This movie is way too drawn out, is boring for the most part. A lot of filler stuff in there that's just not needed. You could have cut a lot of time out. He's trying to overcomplicate it to make it artsy, but it's not a complicated thing that you're doing. Like, we understand exactly what you're doing, and by drawing this thing out, it's just like, do you get it? Do you get it yet? Do you get it? And it's like, yeah, we got it like 20 minutes ago. You don't have to keep trying to show us what this movie means. Like, we understand what you're trying to say. We understood it really by just showing the backstory of the husband and her, what happened. So, I mean, you don't have to go through all this crazy bullshit at the end just for shock value, I feel like. I don't know. I hated it. I didn't like this movie. It doesn't hold up next to any of the other A24 movies. But pretty much everything, a lot of the people that hate A24 and a lot of the stuff that A24 gets shit for is in this movie, and it's very present. And I totally understand a lot of people's hate for this movie. Now, the acting in the movie, I think it was very good for the most part. I think Jessie Buckley did an amazing job with the part. I think she did a very great job of portraying just the emotion and the deep sadness that she has in front of her, and trying to hide it all too in front of some of these other people that she's dealing with through the movie. But I think she had a great performance in it. Like I mentioned, Rory Kinnear, I feel like even though he's playing a bunch of different characters with different characteristics, he played them all very similar. I feel like there wasn't much of a difference between them all. But I mean, that's probably what that's what a director is there for, though, is to direct him to do that. So I mean, I don't blame that on him. But there really isn't too many other characters in the movie other than like Jessie Buckley's friend, who keeps FaceTiming her and calling her to see what's going on. She knows there's a ton of stuff going on, and she keeps telling her, like, I want to come. It's only a couple hours away. I'll come and we'll hang out all weekend or whatever. And she keeps insisting, no, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. And then the night that she says, okay, you can come, and that's when everything really breaks down. And she has to deal with fighting the men, I guess, the different men transforming. And then that's when you get to the birthing scene. But the effects in it were really good. I like one of the really cool standout points of the movie was he sticks his arm through like the mailbox slot in the door, and she shoves a knife down through his arm, and he's just slowly like pulling his arm out of the mailbox hole, and the knife's just splitting his hand straight down the middle. And then like the rest of the movie, as he's chasing her and going through everything, his arm is just like split in two. And he has and I actually like whenever he catches her at that one point, when he grabs her and holds her still, he's using his one hand that's split, and the split hand is like on each side of her neck and everything. I actually liked that part and how they did that. The effects were really good in it. I like the effects in it. It's the story and the actual plot and everything that makes it a movie that was bad. I'm interested to see what direction Alex Garland goes in for his next movie. Hopefully it's a different. He goes back to like an Ex Machina or Annihilation type style movie, because if he tried to go and get a little bit too experimental and a little bit too artsy with this one, a little bit too A24, I thought he was like, man, I'm just gonna go out and make like the most A24 movie ever, and you failed. You fucking failed. And I feel like he needs to make movies for himself. And I mean, I'm not inside this dude's head, so I don't know what he was trying to do, but that's my impression of it, is he was trying to make like an artsy A24 movie that was thought-provoking, and it makes you really think when you're leaving the theater, but it didn't really. I feel like a lot of people had this movie figured out by the midway point through maybe the last 30 minutes there, where it was like, okay, we get the point. You're just drawing it out for so long now. I like, all right, I'm bored. I'm ready for this fucking movie to be over at this point. That's really all that I gotta say about it, because when you really don't like a movie, you don't want to talk about it too much, because I'm probably never going to watch this movie again. Yeah, this movie is the rare A24 miss. You don't see it very often, but every now and then A24 just has a movie. It just a complete miss for me, and I just didn't like it at all. But as a big of a fan as A24 I am, I'm definitely going to check out their future films. I will. Of course, I will check out Alex Garland's other movies as well whenever he releases another one or two. And I'll certainly go back and watch like Ex Machina and Annihilation, but this one I'm probably never going to watch again. I went in this movie hoping I would really like it so I could do a review of it to just talk about A24's greatness continuing, but unfortunately that didn't happen this time. If anybody has seen this movie and you really liked it and you really enjoyed it, make sure to let me know in the comments what you liked about it, and just give me your thoughts on the movie as well. Or if you didn't like it, tell me what you didn't like about it. Before we go here, I am joining Brett Parker and Dissect That Film for their podcast. We're going to be reviewing Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I am very excited to be talking about that. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. We're going to be doing that on their channel and their podcast, so make sure to go like, share, and subscribe to their stuff so you can go check me me out over there, and they have a lot of great content as well. They do a very similar show to us over there, so it should work out very well. Brett Parker from Dissect That Film also came on and talked about The Matrix about a couple months ago here. So if you haven't seen that episode of our show, definitely go check out that video. We broke down and talked about The Matrix, the first one. Hopefully we're gonna have him on again here to talk about The Matrix Reloaded eventually here. I would like to do that, and then we're planning something very special for The Matrix Revolutions eventually. So be on the lookout for those and go check out that old episode. Also, as always, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Go follow us on Twitter at CinemaTripViews. And also go check us out wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a good review there as well. And we'll see everybody next week.